Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Yashodanandana Brajadana Yamuna Tira Vanasari Yamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanasari Yamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe, Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe, Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Gaur Premanande. Jai Nishupada Paramahamsa Pri Vratagacharya Stotra Satya Sri Samadhi Divine Grace Sirabai Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki Iskandiviti Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Samavaya Bhakti ki Harinam Sankirtan ki Grantara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Jai Thai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada ki. We will request the owner of the prized box kindly do the honors, have the honors. And you can mention to our devotees behind the curtains, they have to break fast within the next 20 minutes. Very small, man. He doesn't know what is small. Yeah. Dharma Prasadam ki. So this is because breakfast today is very early. At least here in Mayapur, it has to be 24. Break fast, not breakfast. Break fast. Break fast. Hey, what's your problem? Yeah. Yeah, you can wash your hands.
You have to break the fast. That is non-negotiable.
Yeah, right, unnegotiable. The challenges of winter. Yes. Yes. Oh, there's no water, right? Water there? Yes. Otherwise, there's no meaning to call it a water pot. Eh?
Yes.
It just becomes a pot. Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Narayanam Namaskritya Taram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. Before reciting the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva. Nasta Prayeshabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhaviti Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and the loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, that becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Vidam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Vishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swastayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Sarabhyaya Namaha.
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sarabhyaya Namaha.
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sarabhyaya Namaha.
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
Mukam karoti vasaram pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham bandhanataranam yatkripatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Welcome to morning Bhagavatam class, continuing from canto number 1, but beginning a new chapter today.
Yes.
And because it's a new chapter, next
title
is
was also changed.
title will change, yes. And we are obviously beginning with verse number 1. The title of the chapter is Birth of Emperor Parikshit. Not King Parikshit, Emperor Parikshit, yes. Because the previous personality was Emperor.
Yes.
Who?
Parīkṣit Mahārāja.
The previous emperor.
Yudhishthira Maharaj.
Oh, previous. It's called attentive hearing.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, Canto 1, chapter 12, verse number 1. Shonaka Uvacha
Shonaka Uvacha.
Ashpatamna
Ashvatamna.
Upasritena
Upasritena.
Brahma
Brahma.
Sirshnoru
Srishnoru.
Tejasa
Tejasa.
Uttaraya
Uttaraya.
Hato
Hato.
Garbha
Garbha.
Ishena
Isena.
Ajivitaha
Ajivitaha.
Punaha
Punaha.
Shonaka Uvacha
Shonaka Uvacha.
Ashvatam no pasrishtena
Ashvatamno Patisena.
Brahma Sishnoru Tejasa
Brahma Sishnoru Tejasa.
Uttaraya Hato Garbha
Uttaraya Hato Garbha.
Ishena Jivita Punaha
Isena Jivita Punaha.
Shonaka Uvacha
Shonaka Uvacha.
Ashvatam no pasrishtena
Ashvatamno Pasistena.
Brahma Sishnoru Tejasa
Brahma Sishnoru Tejasa.
Uttaraya Hato Garbha
Uttaraya Hato Garbha.
Ishena Jivita Punaha
Isena Jivita Punaha.
Shonaka Uvacha
Shonaka Uvacha.
Ashvatam no pasrishtena
Ashvatamno Pasistena.
Brahma Sishnoru Tejasa
Brahma Sishnoru Tejasa.
Uttaraya Hato Garbha
Uttaraya Hato Garbha.
Ishena Jivita Punaha
Isena Jivita Punaha. Shonaka Uvacha.
Ashvatamno pasrishtena
Ashvatamno Pasistena.
Brahma Srishnoru Tejasa
Brahma Sishnoru Tejasa.
Uttaraya Hato Garbha
Uttaraya Hato Garbha.
Isena Jivita Punaha
Isena Jivita Punaha. Shonaka Uvacha. Shonaka Uvacha. Ashvatamno Pasistena. Ashvatamno Pasistena. Brahma Sishnoru Tejasa. Brahma Sishnoru Tejasa. Uttaraya Hato Garbha. Uttaraya Hato Garbha. Isena Jivita Punaha. Isena Jivita Punaha. Sonaka Uvacha.
Ashvatamno Parishistena
Ashvatamno Prasistena.
Brahma Srishnoru Tejasa
Brahma Srishnoru Tejasa.
Uttaraya Hato Garbha
Uttaraya Hato Garbha.
Isena Jivita Punaha
Isena Jivita Punaha.
Shonaka Uvacha
Sonaka Uvacha.
Ashvatamno pasrishtena
Ashvatamno
Tejasa
Brahma Srishnoru Tejasa.
Uttaraya Hato Garbha
Uttaraya Hato Garbha.
Isena Jivita Punaha
Isena Jivita Punaha. Sonaka Uvacha
Shonaka Uvacha
Asvathamno Prasistena
Ashvatamno Pasrishtena
Brahma Srishnurta Tejasa
Brahmasishnortejasa
Uttaraya Hato Garbha
Uttaraya Hato Garbha
Isena Jivita Puna
Ishena Jivita Puna
Shonaka Uvacha.
Sonaka Uvacha
The sage Shonaka said,
This Sonaka said
Ashvathamna
Vasvathamna
of Ashvatthama,
of Vasvathama,
the son of Drona,
the son of Drona,
Upastena,
Upasristena,
by release of
by release of
Brahma,
Srishna,
the invincible weapon,
the invincible weapon,
Brahmastra,
Brahmastra,
Brahmastra Urutejasa,
Brahmastra Urutejasa,
by high temperature,
by high temperature,
Uttaraya
Uttaraya
of Uttara,
of Uttara,
mother of Parikshit,
mother of Parikshit,
Hataha,
Hataha,
being spoiled,
being spoiled,
Garbha,
Garbha,
womb,
womb,
Ishena,
Isena,
by the Supreme Lord,
by the Supreme Lord, Ajita,
Punaha.
Punaha, again.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Raghava Swami Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai.
The sage Shonaka said, the womb of Uttara, mother of Maharaj Parikshit, was spoiled by the dreadful and invincible Brahmastra weapon released by Ashvatthama. But Maharaj Parikshit was saved by the Supreme Lord. Kindly repeat after me. The sage Shonaka said,
The sage Sonaka said,
the womb of Uttara,
the womb of Uttara,
mother of Maharaj Parikshit,
mother of Maharaj Parikshit,
was spoiled
was spoiled
by the dreadful
by the dreadful
and invincible Brahmastra weapon
and invincible Brahmastra weapon
released by Ashvatthama.
released by Aswathama,
But Maharaj Parikshit
but Maharaj Parikshit
was saved by the Supreme Lord.
was saved by the Supreme Lord.
Purport. The sages assembled in the forest of Naimisharanya inquired from Sutta Goswami about the birth of Maharaj Parikshit. But in the course of the narration, other topics like the release of the Brahmastra by the son of Drona, his punishment by Arjuna, Queen Kunti Devi's prayers, the Pandavas' visit to the place where Bhishma Dev was lying, his prayers, and thereafter the Lord's departure for Dwarka were discussed. His arrival of Dwarka and residing with the 16,000 queens, etc., were narrated. The sages were absorbed in hearing such descriptions, but now they wanted to turn to the original topic, and thus the inquiry was made by Shonaka Rishi. So the subject of the release of the Brahmastra weapon by Ashvatthama is renewed. Translation again. The sage Shonaka said, the womb of Uttara, mother of Parikshit, mother of Maharaj Parikshit, was spoiled by the dreadful and invincible Brahmastra weapon released by Ashvatthama. But Maharaj Parikshit was saved by the Supreme Lord. So there's Sutta Goswami who's relating what he heard from Śukadeva Gosvāmī as he spoke to Parīkṣit Mahārāja. And then this is the we are returning to the topic, subject matter of Parīkṣit Mahārāja and how appearance, his birth, and therefore as the spokesperson for the sages, Adnamisharanya, Shonaka is putting forth questions regarding Maharaj Parikshit and how he was born. So that's why the title of this chapter here is Birth of Emperor Parikshit. Prabhupada explains that in the course of the discussion, just like very often we'll talk about something and then we go off, and Prabhupada summarizes how this also brought various discussions. Means the previous chapters we have been reading connected with the punishment that was given by Arjuna, the wonderful prayers of Queen Kunti Devi, and then the Pandavas getting association with Bhishma Dev, who was lying on his bed of arrows, and the prayers, but very briefly. Bhagavatam just very very briefly summarizes the instructions of Bhishma Dev. There's a whole Parva section, very Bharata, and then Krishna's leaving for Dwarka, and some description we have read. That was our last chapter, Krishna's entrance into Dwarka. So maybe it's mentioned later on, but one of the characteristics of the appearance of Parīkṣit Mahārāja was that he never got to know his father. Parīkṣit Mahārāja never got to know his father.
Yes.
I mean, never got to see his father.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Because who is his father?
Abhimanyu.
Abhimanyu, the famous Abhimanyu. Yeah, who was only, 16 years of age
Yes.
when although such a young boy, I mean, young man, you could say, like teenager, he was like a superhero, as we know, in the battle of Kurukṣetra, taking on, without any fear, taking on the biggest, the most prominent opponents, including grandfather Bhishma Dev. He started shooting arrows at grandfather Bhishma Dev, and Bhishma Dev just didn't take him seriously.
Yes.
He's catching his arrows with his hand.
Yes.
There's a science actually to test, and I forget who, somebody threw, after the training of the Pandavas and the Kauravas under Dronacharya, someone threw an arrow at Arjuna just to find out if he had learned, and he just caught it right away. This is like very so so yes, he was in the womb of his mother Uttara, and therefore he was born after the battle of Kurukṣetra. And naturally, he was well aware, Parīkṣit Mahārāja, of the glorious activities of his father, and also, of course, his grandfather, or his grandfathers. I mean, Arjuna. So, yeah, this is kind of like setting the scene a little bit here. So we'll read a few verses here that will introduce gradually more and more the subject matter of this chapter. So we go to text number 2. Tasya janma mahabuddhe
Tasya janma mahabuddhe
karmani cha mahatmanaha
karmani cha mahatmana
nidhanam cha yathaivasit
Nidanam cha yadavasit
sapritya gatavan yatha.
Sabritya gatavan yatha.
Translation and purport. How was the great Emperor Parikshit, who was a highly intelligent and great devotee, born in that womb? How did his death take place, and what did he achieve after his death? Purport. The king of Hastinapura, now Delhi, used to be the emperor of the world, at least of the time of the son of Emperor Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit was saved by the Lord in the womb of his mother. So he could certainly be saved from an untimely death due to the ill will of the son of a Brahmana. Because the age of Kali began to act just after the assumption of power by Maharaj Parikshit. The first sign of misgivings was exhibited in the cursing of such a greatly intelligent and devoted king as Maharaj Parikshit. The king is the protector of the helpless citizens, and their welfare, peace, and prosperity depend on him. Unfortunately, by the instigation of the fallen age of Kali, an unfortunate Brahmana's son was employed to condemn the innocent Maharaj Parikshit, and so the king had to prepare himself for death within 7 days. Maharaj Parikshit is especially famous as one who is protected by Vishnu. And when he was unduly cursed by a Brahmana's son, he could have invoked the mercy of the Lord to save him, but he did not want to because he was a pure devotee. Pure devotee never asked the Lord for any undue favor. Maharaj Parikshit knew that the curse of the Brahmana's son upon him was unjust, as everyone else knew, but he did not want to counteract it because he knew also that the age of Kali had begun and that the first symptom of the age, namely degradation of the highly talented Brahmana community, had also begun. He did not want to interfere with the current of the time, but he prepared himself to meet death very cheerfully and very properly. Being fortunate, he got at least 7 days to prepare himself to meet death, and so he properly utilized the time in the association of Śukadeva Gosvāmī, the great saint and devotee of the Lord. So the influence of the age of Kali has been ongoing for 5,000 plus years. One of the foremost symptoms of the age of Kali is, as Prabhupada mentions in the purport, the degradation of Brahminical culture, and followed by a second unfortunate situation, the degradation of the Kshatriya culture. And then when both of these are negatively affected, then the rest of society just follows, also becomes degraded. So leadership is like such a key element for any society, for any community, and therefore the absolute necessity for, if we want to reestablish the glories of the Vedic culture, which is, although it is Kali Yuga, there's a special concession. We learn from Shastra that there's a, what is it? window of opportunity, a 10,000-year period where Vedic culture actually can be reestablished. It's somewhat practically, inconceivable for us, but it is there in the Shastra. It is being promoted and advertised and encouraged and supported by our acharyas, Vaishnava acharyas. So we as devotees, we have our conviction, our knowledge is from the Shastra, and from those who represent Shastra. So we are totally convinced that such a golden period of such a yuga is meant to take place, primarily actually by the advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore, although from all material calculation it seems like impossible for devotees, there is no such word as impossible. We find ourselves today in probably one of the most climax, not climatic, well, that's also in difficulty, but at the climax of this degradation within society, degradation of leaders, especially within the field of politics. But also there is a very deep misunderstanding amongst religious leaders as to what actually is meant to be, dharma. So one of our foremost, if not the foremost, activity and purpose and objective for us, both individually and also as a society, is to give present the proper understanding of dharma. Dharma needs to become, gradually it is becoming known, but the real or proper understanding of dharma is something that will take some time. Most of us, I would think all of us who have taken up to Krishna consciousness, we have done so because we have some basic preliminary understanding of what is dharma. And even though we may have, most of us, especially from outside of India, we're following a different type of, let's say, religion. And by Prabhupada's grace and mercy, we've come to know about dharma, specifically about Sanatana Dharma. So, a few points that Prabhupada makes. Parīkṣit Mahārāja, a pure devotee of the Lord, could have requested the Lord to actually counter this curse upon him, but being a pure devotee, he accepted, understanding that the influence of Kali Yuga had already begun, and so this is like very exemplary. The devotee depends primarily, first and foremost, on the arrangements that Krishna makes. We may endeavor in different ways. We should endeavor, of course, but the ultimate result we should accept and understand it as being, you could say, ordained by the Lord. Prabhupada explains also how he prepared himself to meet death very cheerfully. how to meet death cheerfully. Most people cannot relate to that. How can we meet, or what does it mean to meet death cheerfully? Or what makes it that someone who's a devotee is meant to meet death cheerfully?
He knows it's going to die when he's happy.
He knows he's going to Dham, so he's happy.
When the person follows normally the process of Varnashram, the four dharmas.
When a person follows dharma,
Yeah.
in particular Varnashrama dharma,
Knows that
then
after step by step, you know that you're preparing yourself.
so the point that I'm understanding that you're making is that nice point actually. The system again created by Krishna, given by Krishna of Varnashrama is actually meant for that purpose, to gradually prepare oneself, to prepare individuals through the different ashramas in particular, because the ashrams are the spiritual statuses in life. So gradually, just like vanaprastha, those who generally take vanaprastha have already lived out a number of years as grihastas, and they have experienced the mixture of family life, various anxieties, etc. If they have followed nicely, then they will more easily be able to give up family life, take vanaprastha, and vanaprastha, as we know, is especially austerities to become more and more detached, to prepare oneself psychologically, spiritually, to actually leave the body, which will, of course, put an end to the never-ending cycle of repeated birth and death. So yeah, these two are good points. Devotees know that the future of anyone who practices Krishna consciousness is bright, because even if one doesn't go back home, back to Godhead immediately, he will be in a favorable condition. He will take birth in the family of devotees. He will again continue. He will pursue his practice of bhakti in the next life. So that in itself is positive, isn't it? And there is possibility, those who are fully surrendered, of going back home, back to Godhead. Yes. So knowing this, therefore, Srila Prabhupada, what was first and foremost thought, or we can say mission, in going back, in leaving India and going to New York and going to America? What was Prabhupada's primary plan, first plan, mission, besides chanting Hare Krishna? Was to create brahmanas, isn't it? He wanted to create brahmanas. He wanted to reestablish and give opportunity to whoever could follow these four rules and regulations. Following these four rules and regulations, these are known as the four pillars of dharma. One cannot practice dharma, one cannot understand about dharma unless one follows these four principles of dharma. Satyam, Daya, Tapa, Saucham, that are described actually, Hare Krishna, that are described in the 7th canto, that are described by whom? Narada Muni, yes. Why is Narada Muni important to Vaishnavas? There's a special reason. I mean, yes, but that is not the one I'm looking for. But it is a correct answer. Why? There's something very unique about Narada Muni that that is unique to him, and especially important for Vaishnavas. Hmm? Preacher. Well, we have many preachers. Because he is. Because he's the disciple of Vyasadeva.
No, I instructed Vyasadeva.
Because he's the spiritual master of Vyasadeva. That is also true, and that's also unique. But there's something, what is very unique about Narada Muni is that he is the expert in terms of bhakti, isn't it? Yeah, we especially refer to Narada Muni on the science of bhakti. And simultaneously, he is expert in Varnashrama Dharma. Otherwise, he would not speak for 5 chapters, chapter 11 to 15, isn't it? So, in other words, he is unique in that he is representing these 2 levels or 2 dimensions of Dharma, which we generally don't think about or don't, I would say, definitely don't properly understand. We don't, very often we don't even know. We don't even know that there are these 2 levels of dharma, which I guess I have to remind myself and try to remind others also that it is in many ways fundamental to properly re-establishing or reintroducing is not one or the other, but actually is a combination of these 2 levels of dharma. So one is called spiritual swadharma. Spiritual swadharma, what is that famous instruction by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Yes, Jiver Sarup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. Jiva, Jivera, Jiver Sarup Hoy, the original quality, nature of the Jiva, the living entity. Atma is to be eternal servant, Nityadas, eternal servant of Krishna. Krishna Nityadas, not some other Nityadas. So that is a level of bhakti. That is a level of spiritual swadharma. And the other level is called material swadharma. Material Swadharma means actually Varnashrama. Material Swadharma has to do with this body, this Prakriti, the Paraprakriti, Apara Prakriti, material nature. What is energy of the Lord called Prakriti? How this is meant to function. How we are meant to interact with Prakriti. And of course, Prakriti is intimately connected with the modes of material nature, the gunas. And Varnashrama is intimately connected with the modes of material nature. Isn't it? And therefore, because we cannot immediately transcend these modes of material nature, it would be so wonderful if we could do that hours or less, but that's not the case. It takes many years. That's probably an understatement. It takes many lifetimes. Many lifetimes. Generally, it takes many, many lifetimes to conquer over these modes of material nature. And the whole system of Varnashrama is there to gradually bring one from the lower modes of nature to the higher mode, which is the mode of goodness. But that's not the end of it, that's the beginning. When we finally come to the mode of goodness, then we can begin spiritual life. Of course, anyone in any mode of nature can begin spiritual life by chanting Hare Krishna, by taking prasadam, so many ways that one can begin that process of purification. So therefore Narada Muni, being an expert in these two features of dharma, is especially important for the Vaishnavas, because Srila Prabhupada mentioned, and it is there also in the Shastra, that it is not so easy to become Vaishnava, and that actually the same thing, I'll read it again, I think it's 26, 1:9:26. Let's see how my memory serves. Yes, I got it this time. Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 26, the passing away of Grandfather Bhishmadev. The beginning instructions of Grandfather Bhishmadev after Yudhishthira Maharaj, who had gone and sat at the lotus feet of Grandfather Bhishmadev, lying on his bed of arrows. Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking for instructions and guidance, and this is the first reply here, 26. At Maharaj Yudhishthira's inquiry, Bhishmadev first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. So the first line of the purport is what we are interested in hearing. Prabhupada says, the conception of the four castes and four orders of life, that means Varnashram, as planned by the Lord himself, Bhagavad Gita 4.13, as we know, is to accelerate transcendental qualities of the individual person so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity and thus act accordingly to get free from material bondage or conditional life. When we read that a few weeks back, I guess, when we were covering this chapter, it like, very meaningful. In other words, this is also reconfirmed by Srila Prabhupada himself, that it is necessary. Prabhupada actually makes a statement. It is necessary to follow Varnashrama to become a Vaishnava. Under some exceptional cases, it may not be. But for the vast majority of people, which means also for the vast majority of devotees, it is necessary to follow Varnashrama to actually become Vaishnava. And here specifically Prabhupada says to accelerate transcendental qualities. So therefore, Narada Muni is to us being highly learned and specializing in these two domains, in these two areas. And therefore, connecting with what we're reading, Parīkṣit Mahārāja being cursed by the son of. So from the very beginning of the symptoms of the degradation of Brahmana culture and Kshatriya culture, which is in so many ways actually the source of today's problems, which was highlighted, actually, which most devotees are less familiar, but this was highlighted like a few hundred years ago. What was the whole French Revolution based on? It's only when we study a little bit of history or literature we can come to know the whole, because that was a whole very historical and having very major impact. That impact continues today, actually. The French Revolution was actually a reaction to the misuse of Brahminical culture and Kshatriya culture being setting. The and the church, monarchy and the church representing Brahmanas, so to speak, kicked out. They were rejected. And then a new understanding, a new philosophy, which is modern day philosophy, was introduced, which is connected with democracy and so many different social systems. Like? Laïcité.
Yes.
Oh,
C'est la science qui prédomine.
c'est mélangé.
C'est la science qui prédomine. Oh.
C'est la science qui prédomine, oui. That gave rise actually to what is called modern sociology. Prior to so-called modern sociology, there was Vedic sociology. For us to actually understand what is modern sociology, we have to properly understand what is Vedic sociology. What is the essence of modern sociology? The conclusion is the understanding or misunderstanding from our perspective. Their understanding is that we only believe what we can see. We only believe what is rational. We can only believe what our senses tell us. Everything else is what is it? Mythology or whatever. And therefore, yeah. Therefore, the rejection of the concept of the absolute truth. Modern day scientists, modern day intellectuals, modern day they don't believe in the absolute truth. That's why somebody like Gandhiji wrote a book entitled My Experiments with the Absolute Truth. How you can experiment with the absolute truth. The absolute truth is either absolute or it's not absolute. Bhagavad Gita is not according to my interpretation. Bhagavad Gita is as it is.
Yes, as it is.
Right? Okay, action is about to happen. So we're just beginning this chapter, and so it's speaking about Parīkṣit Mahārāja, who is the emperor, and we are being reminded of how he was cursed by son of a Brahmana, and which put into jeopardy up to this day the post and the responsibilities, duties of both Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, and that is where especially we need to concentrate in the context of Varnashrama, in the context of Varnashram college specifically. Why do we want to establish, or why does Prabhupada want to establish Varnashram college? Is for this very purpose, to highlight, to introduce, to instruct, to educate us on the principles, on the Vedic principles of these two levels of dharma, without which we cannot properly exist nor function within society. We will close here for now. Jai Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Jai Śrīla Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaura Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
No question. No asking question today.